Well, it's a whole thing, isn't it? Like, I haven't been giving these episodes star reviews, but I have a pretty good idea where the rest of the season would wind up if I ever gave in to the almighty algorithm and just made a list video or something. Where do you rank an episode that simultaneously manages to include everything you love about Doctor Who and everything that really grinds your gears about televised science fiction in general, sometimes within the same line of dialogue? Everything with General Cicero. She's a hero to billions, and she has a thing called Pilot's Heart, which she's trying to cover up, but the Doctor figures it out, and it could be fatal, which is why she's taking adrenaline blockers. No one can know that the galaxy's #1 Star Fox is one barrel roll away from a heart attack. I like her relationship with her brother, who's just as talented as she is, except he's the behind-the-scenes tech guy, and she's the star, so he winds up being overlooked, which makes him a little bit bitter, but ultimately he loves his sister and has to step in and be the hero after her noble sacrifice, and the whole thing was just... it was good. I liked it. That's a cool story. They're great. The assistant medic was great too, and the chief doctor, and the pregnant dude, and his little cuddly woodly dude. Oh my god, he got it. Yeah, they're all great. In fact, there are so many damn characters in this episode, and all of them are interesting.
Unfortunately,
there are so many damn characters in this episode, and all of them are interesting. If you're going to include this many interesting characters, you can't waste a good chunk of the episode on an extended scene of expository technobabble, especially if A, one of those two characters dies in the first 15 minutes, and 2, well, see, no one ever believed in the medic who wound up becoming the hero, you see, no one except the guy who died, and... oh, didn't we tell you that earlier? 'Cause it's very moving. It is very... don't you see how moving it is? It's... no? No? Oh, okay, because, once again, you forgot to properly set up the thing, Chris! I like this kid and her adorable tattoos, and she ultimately gets to be the hero, but she isn't served well by the script. And one of the big problems I've noticed in Chris Chibnall's writing in particular is that, while his plots hold together really well and his characters are multidimensional, sometimes he'll go for an emotional beat when there really isn't time to properly set it up, but he goes for it anyway, and that's how you get...
He was one of the only people who ever believed in me.
Okay, yeah, I guess that this guy was the only one who really believed in you, and I really wish I cared because it came out of nowhere, or maybe it was there, but it got lost in the 6 solid minutes of technobabble we had to sit through to get to the interesting bits.
but I did like
How Jodie's doctor's MO seems to be jump into a situation and do the best you can given the available materials, except the available materials are usually people. So it's less, I'm the doctor and I'm Sherlock Holmes level brilliant and I figured out the mystery already, no need to thank me, and more sort of, well, Hufflepuff. People skills, working with a group, figuring out what everybody's strengths are, to each their own. But then there was still that fun scene where she wanted to make sure everyone knew there was a whole volume in the Galactic Who's Who all about her, so...
I'd say it was more of a volume than a chapter.
she's a humble bragging Hufflepuff. Humble bragging Hufflepuff.
Number of Federalist papers written by Alexander Hamilton.
13's a humble bragging Hufflepuff.
I love that show. I've seen all 900 casts.
She's humbly done a bunch of Hufflestuffs. It's all quite Troutney, which makes sense because this was clearly this version of Doctor Who ticking the Base Under Siege thing off the list.
Unfortunately,
Base Under Siege is traditionally the format the show returns to when it's running out of ideas, and this is episode 5. The actual plot/conflict here was on its own a bit meh. This is a bit more like 42, which Chibnall also wrote, than anything we've seen so far, and 42 was fine, but also sort of, and the only memorable parts of it were kind of
and I'll admit that this was pretty great.
the urgency and rhythm it kept up, and the layer of quirkiness added by the quirks of the quirky stuff.
Next number in the sequence, 313? 331, 367. What?
You said the crew knew all the answers.
The clue's changed since we set the question.
Pick a number between 1 and 100.
51.
Pentagonal number. Interesting.
Remember how in 42 Martha had to answer pub quiz questions to save the Doctor? It's probably the only thing anyone remembers about that episode, apart from the bit where David Tennant ate a son or something, but that ain't nothing. And if Chibnall's main positive contribution to the Doctor Who universe is his reimagining of a format that's been stale since the late 60s as a template for utter wackiness, important character beats for the main cast, surprisingly poignant moments that might have been funny, and surprisingly funny monsters that might have been scary, that's a perfectly fine legacy to have. The pating is the new adipose, and I want one for Christmas, please. Seems harmless, is actually deadly, is still kind of lovable. This is Chris Chibnall's bread and butter.
On a loop.
But for heaven's sake, people,
Every now and then the show remembers it's supposed to be a show for kids, and sometimes it's Bill Nye, and sometimes it's Blue's Clues. The thing that Cicero's kid brother figured out that was supposedly genius wasn't really that genius, maybe. Like, it's kind of honestly shocking that no one figured out, hey man, this little munchkin thing is like slurping the energy drive from stuff, so maybe, and call me crazy here, maybe it eats energy.
Check this out.
The design of the ship was gorgeous. I mean, it felt a bit J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, but that's fine. Gleaming white hospital ship, feels crisp and clean and shiny. The computer panels were designed beautifully. The antimatter drive felt like a thing that might work in the future. It felt like a solid world with a very consistent design aesthetic. Very Star Trek, but that's okay.
Unfortunately,
The title of this episode was also very Star Trek. In terms of, generic sci-fi big words noise phrasing, it's practically a Voyager episode. I had to keep looking up the title of this episode because it kept sliding out of my brain. The Sarina Inception? Tsunami Malfunction? Sriracha Contraption? Is this the one where Tom Paris gets turned into a lizard?
but this warmed my heart.
The pregnant man arc is, surprisingly, the part that works best for me. No, seriously, Yas's arc as the pregnant man is surprisingly sweet. Guy got knocked up on holiday, barely knows the mother. He's not sure if he's going to keep the kid because he's not ready to be a dad, but Ryan convinces him that he'd be a good father. Mostly because when Ryan's dad was his age, he skipped out and then his mom died, and then Ryan and Graham have to sort of be the midwives for this poor chap who decides to keep the baby and name him Avocado after that great ancient Earth hero who invented toast.
However, don't get me started on how...
You're seriously gonna pull the going into labor just as all hell's breaking loose card? No, I don't care if it's a man. It's not offensive or anything, it's just boring. The script keeps running into problems like that. Take a character and or situation that's actually pretty well realized and interesting on their own, and then use them as plot devices in the most boring way possible anyway.
But then again...
Ryan and Graham helping Yas was still absolutely lovely. I like that Graham's seen every episode of Call the Midwife, but he turns away for the squeamish bits. I really like how it effortlessly slips in a little bit of Ryan's backstory and leads to a really powerful moment. This, right here, is how you earn and pay off an emotional beat in a way that allows a character to grow organically.
However...
Yaz is, once again, just kinda also here.
Although, I'll give them this.
I like the antimatter drive bit. Even if this week's science lesson once again felt a bit shoehorned in, it's still cool that, yeah, Yaz is from exactly the right time in human history, in other words, right now, to have learned a little bit about antimatter in school. Yaz is, if nothing else, really good at being the kind of traditional companion that works well with number 13. I don't know if I ship it as much as you do, but yeah, they work well together.
Unfortunately...
The android didn't need to be there. He gets Cicero her meds, then dies when she dies. And that's it. He looks cool, though. He's like Data's emo brother. It's like there's Data, Lore, and Alec.
In conclusion...
The Tarantella Quandary, or whatever the hell it's called, is kind of a whole thing. If nothing else, it sums up why Doctor Who is and always will be the best show in the universe ever, because only on Doctor Who can you have an episode that features a pregnant man who isn't really played for laughs, a serious discussion about antimatter, references to Call the Midwife and Hamilton, a ticking time bomb, and an insanely cute squiggly little big-toothed troll, God I love him, as the main villain. Only on Doctor Who can you have an episode jam-packed with all those things and more, and have it still come off as fine, I guess. Even though I am allergic to technobabble and have a severe intolerance to shoehorned future speak, this still felt like a fully fleshed out lived-in future with lots of side details and tons of possibilities. Most of the throwaway gags and details kind of worked for me, so I guess maybe you could put me into the yeah, I liked it camp.
But nah, because...
What if they made Murder on the Orient Express, except everyone on the train was from a Bulgarian circus troupe, and it turned out none of them did it because the culprit was a passing seagull? That's what the Cernado experiment, the tiramisu contraption, God, that's a boring title. Okay, this episode, whatever this episode's called, felt like to me. The deluge of details, coupled with the disaster movie / mystery structure, made me constantly feel like I was missing something important, when it turned out the answer was just, oh no, it's just that there's a bomb on the ship for perfectly valid, let's not accidentally start a plague reasons, and this creature eats energy, and that's it, that's how we're gonna solve it. The whole time I was just thinking, there's so much going on here on this hospital ship that, nah, this so-called conundrum really can't be as simple as that, right? Nope, it's just that. The answer really is, this adorable little thing that appears to eat electricity, in fact, is eating electricity.
Unfortunately...
Oh, I mean, just look at this. Look at this guy. Look at this. Look at his little space butt. Robot, a giant one. He crushed a daffodil. Harry is an